everybody. This is episode 11 of Injustice for All with Judge O'Brown. And today we're going to talk about several things. We're going to talk about Social Security. We got to talk about these pulpit pimps. And we're going to start off with Trump thinking about giving reparations, not to Black Americans, but to the January Sixers. How you doing, Judge? So let's get right into it. Trump floats the possibility of compensation for January 6th rioters. Well, of course, media is going to still call them rioters. President Trump on Tuesday, he did an interview with Newsmax, and he floated the possibility of compensation for people who were prosecuted for taking part in January 6th at the Capitol in 2021. Speaking to Newsmax Tuesday night, Trump said he had taken care of his supporters who attempted to overturn his 2020 election loss and added there is talk about compensation. I don't want to read this article. And this is why I really don't like reading articles.
Well,
because they're all left wing.
Well, don't read them. The truth of the matter is it's not reparations, it's restitution. And there are either three things that are going to happen. One, Congress will pass an act that compensates them for being wrongfully prosecuted. That would be a form of restitution.
Right.
Enabling it, that would be an Appropriations and Enablement Act. Or there's already money that's available that is subject to the discretionary spending of the chief executive, meaning the president. And if there is such, and it is available, he can do that, assuming that Congress is not going to forbid it. So, yeah, he can do that, but he can't do anything about reparations. As I've said many times, there is no conceivable way through American law at this point in this late remove other than a legislative act, an enablement and appropriations act by Congress or some state legislature. And there's always the headaches of who's supposed to be covered and how do you make an identification, what sort of test you're going to have, what sort of proof are you going to have if you make a claim. And considering the fraudulent claims we've had a lot of over the last decades for anything from food stamps to the government cheese, you can count on the fact that there will be a bunch of them that will be coming if you ever get reparations. So they have to work that out. That's just what happens with law, if it happens. And considering the fact that the population dynamics are altering very quickly, is either now or it's not likely to happen because the population dynamics will be even more unfavorable to that happening in a decade and a half. So It is what it is. And the reparations will resolve itself. And the Black Caucus, which seems to be more the LGBTQIA plus rainbow caucus than it is black, since I think all but 5 members of the Black Caucus are part of the Liberty Caucus, which is the LGBTQIA Congressional Caucus, it looks like the ones that you would think would advance the interest of the constituents that put them in office are in fact advancing somebody else's interest at the expense of their lookalike constituents. So there is no help from that quarter. Now, that said, restitution is appropriate. Ordinarily, a sovereign is immune. You can't sue it. But occasionally, when there is something like a wrongful arrest or something like that, inappropriate detention, or somebody is released from prison after being shown to be pristinely innocent, a state legislative body will introduce and pass what's known as a private act saying this guy or these guys right here and girls, we designate them by name. They're entitled to compensation for being wrongfully prosecuted and incarcerated et cetera, et cetera. And that's apparently what President Trump is urging. I don't have any problems with it. I always thought what I saw was just the exercise of First Amendment rights. It didn't look like a riot to me. It just looked like a slight disturbance, a few people committing some misdemeanor acts of vandalism, and perhaps you had misdemeanor trespass that got blown all out of proportion by the January 6th committee, which, by the way, got pardoned by Biden. And I'm wondering what for, since the Constitution clearly says they are immune for actions and speech taken on the House or Senate floor, which is where all this occurred. So perhaps they were conspiring in the background, which is not legal, or doing some other things, which is not legal. And that's what they were getting pardoned for. But I didn't see a riot. I didn't see an insurrection, certainly not that, since that's basically a civil war. And the idea that 180 people would be able to, or even contemplate, overthrowing the U.S. government is an absolutely absurd proposition.
Well,
so that is not out of line.
Mm-hmm. I want to play the clip when he was on Newsmax talking, just this quick clip talking about the compensation.
To get back to the tariffs, but if you don't mind, no one has spoken as boldly and with as much truth as you about Ashley Babbitt. It was a bad shooting. My father can tell you that. Anybody.
It's a terrible thing.
I don't know if you know this, but the Department of Justice right now is still kind of fighting that case. The family of Ashley Babbitt is suing the government, wrongful death. The DOJ right now officially is still opposing that lawsuit, trying to justify it. Shouldn't that be something that can just be settled at this point?
Well, I'll look into that. I mean, you're just telling me that for the first time. I haven't heard that. I'm a big fan of Ashley Babbitt, okay? And Ashley Babbitt was a really good person who was a big MAGA fan, Trump fan, and she was innocently standing there. They even say trying to sort of hold back the crowd. And a man did something to her that was unthinkable when he shot her. And I think it's a disgrace. I'm going to look into that. I did not know that, no.
And the officer who shot her, Michael Byrd, is still on duty. They gave him a raise and they gave him a medal and I believe a promotion.
I think it's a disgrace.
He's a federal employee. Would you or could you do something about
I'm going to
that?
take a look at it. I'm going to look at that too. His reputation was, I won't even say, let's find out about his reputation, okay? We're going to find out. But I watched that and I saw that. And by the way, she was killed, but nobody else was killed. And, you know, the people that went down there, they had no guns. They didn't have guns. There was something to do with the FBI. There was something to do with Antifa and others, and it wasn't mentioned. And there's never been a group of people, I think, with the exception of maybe over the years, a couple of groups were treated pretty harshly, but essentially never treated so badly. And as you know, I let them out with pardons. I know you were very happy. I watch your show all the time. You were extremely happy about it. And plenty of other people were too. People don't realize this whole movement that we have is just it's a very inspiring thing, what's happened to our country. These people are incredible people. They were treated so unfairly, so horribly. Some of them didn't even go into the building. And the judges, the system, the hatred, the vitriol, the prosecutors, the way they wanted to destroy these people would go in and they'd be so proud to go before court, and they'd have a good lawyer, and they'd walk out of court like devastated the way they were treated, devastated, given years in prison. No, but I took care of them. I said I was going to, and I did.
And I have another clip.
I think that what he did was appropriate, and I didn't have any offense that developed over the remarks.
An interview on Newsmax where he was asked about the possibility of reparations for people involved with January 6th. Listen.
Is there any talk of, because they lost opportunity, they lost income, any kind of compensation fund?
Well, there's talk about that. We have a lot of people talk about it. A lot of the people that are in government now talk about it because a lot of the people in government really like that group of people. They were patriots as far as I was concerned. I talk about them a lot. They were treated very unfairly.
Van, there's a lot of talk about that.
Patriots.
My head is about to fly off
Now,
my
hold on.
shoulders.
Before we get into this BS, did you hear him say reparations?
No,
Who said reparations?
the news anchor for CNN.
CNN. See, this is how they start BS. They say something like that, and the woke idiots hear that. He's talking about reparations for them demonstrators, and he ain't even saying nothing about black folk. He said absolutely nothing about reparations. He wasn't even being interviewed by this charlatan. The charlatan said he's discussing reparations for the January 6th crowd. You didn't hear Trump mention reparations, and what words he uses are restitution for specific wrongs done to specific individuals. Now, that's a whole lot different than reparations. So now the woke idiots, we're going to probably, I haven't seen this clip, but I can bet you they're going to start being upset about Trump talking about reparations for the January 6th and nothing about the reparations to the Negroes. So let's hear what we have here. Maybe I'm wrong.
And flip around the room and blow up on the set because you're talking about people who beat up cops. My father was a cop in the military. My favorite uncle, Milton, just retired from Memphis City Police Force. I'm a law enforcement kid. I can put up with a lot of stuff. Beating up cops is not one of them.
Stop.
Period.
Stop it. What cops got beat up? We just heard the truthful thing. The only person that got shot was an off-duty cop who was one of the protesters. What cops did you see in any footage getting beat up, and where did he get that idea?
And so you're now saying that these are patriots who deserve reparations. The cops that got beat up might deserve reparations. The lawmakers who got scared half to death might deserve reparations. I don't know. African Americans have been mistreated for 40 years, might at least get a study on reparations.
Stop. Did you hear Trump or anybody from his administration again say reparations? See how this nonsense gets started? You're watching it. He didn't mention that word.
This is an
Go ahead.
insult to anybody who believes in law and order in this country.
I want to talk to the black folks who voted for Donald Trump.
The lawmakers who got scared half to death might deserve reparations. I don't know. African Americans have been mistreated for 40 years, might at least get a study on reparations. But this is an insult to anybody who believes in law and order in this country.
His Democratic Party 5 years ago had 2 weeks worth of hearings to determine whether a study should be done on reparations. They did not institute any study, and exactly 2 weeks to the day on the first voice vote with no debate, they passed an act known as, quote, the Gay Reparations Act. The same Democratic Party Black Caucus sponsored it. So what is he talking about? His party had control of the situation. They were pushing it as though all of these circus hearings they were having was for the purpose of debating whether or not, or investigating whether or not to have hearings on the issue of reparations, or at least, appointing a study committee, none of which was appointed. Now, that's the truth of the matter. We watched it. So what is he talking about? See how this poison propaganda starts? The lie is getting put here subtly in a fashion that would deal with, well, he's going to have to stop beating his wife. Who says he beat his wife other than you? And we can't have anybody in office who regularly beats his wife. Where did that come from? Nowhere. But people are going to come back. He's been beating his wife. Somebody like that shouldn't be allowed to hold office. Anybody have any proof of that? No. Just somebody's innuendo that they spouted that's now getting repeated. and the story is getting synthesized because everybody wants what was said in 3 to 5 seconds. Now, let's go on from there and hear the rest of the nonsense.
Sorry, I want to talk to the black folks who voted for Donald Trump and they were mad because Kamala Harris said she wouldn't do reparations, or Joe Biden said, this is your president. Reparations for January 6th rioters.
Scott, you've been really clear on your disavowal of what happened on January 6th. I want to hear what you have to say about what Trump just said.
Yeah, I'm not interested in reparations for this. I mean, I think there are procedures in place if someone feels like they were improperly dealt with in the criminal justice system. You can sue, and go through the civil system. But I don't think
there's nobody you can sue. There's sovereign immunity. So that's BS. That's not even a talking point because no such avenue of redress exists. So you can fast forward over that, but it might be interesting to see what another ignoramus says about the subject. That because it's on CNN or some such nonsensical MSM mainstream media station will be taken for the truth of the matter. Again, we have had every single person that spoke talked about reparations, and not one word has been spoken about reparations officially because it's not. It's restitution.
this is a policy that should be pursued. I mean, look, the truth is, a lot of these people, and some committed violent acts and some didn't, but they all got pardoned. So they all already got something very valuable.
Right. Freedom.
I don't know who's really asking for this. I don't think.
I think it was Greg Kelly.
I don't think. I don't think Republicans, John, on Capitol Hill want to focus on this. I mean, you actually raised some good points about the cost of living. You raised good points about access to affordable housing. What goods have gone down? What goods have not gone down? We have a housing shortage. That is something I think the administration could really, really focus on, particularly for younger people.
Oh boy. And here we go, la-di-da, as the American public sucks up this poison, this lie told subtly.
So Trump never said reparations. He didn't even say restitution. He just said he took care of them.
Yeah, well, I would define what he's talking about as restitution. They should be compensated because, as I have said for months, as I've said, when this went down and after it went down, the worst we had in here was misdemeanor trespass, which was arguable because the police opened the doors and invited them in. They stood to the side while they held the doors as they entered. So that wasn't even a trespass. Okay, maybe a few instances of misdemeanor disorderly conduct and a very few instances of misdemeanor vandalism, if you can call somebody going in Pelosi's office and propping his feet up on her desk. So
yeah,
all of this conspiracy and all the rest and people getting years in jail, this is lawfare. This is abuse of process by the official system. And were they not shielded to an extent by their status of being office holders or officials, they should have been prosecuted themselves, meaning the people who did the prosecution should have been prosecuted for abuse of process in violating the rights of the demonstrators.
Okay. So we can move on from there.
Yeah. And it is going to be another matter of difference of opinion. And there's some goddamn fools out there, some Negroes. What's wrong with Judge Joe Brown? He shouldn't have there cooning because you taking that party. I call the law, you damn fools.
Do you care if people say you cooning?
No, I know I'm not. I paid my dues. So I'm looking at the ones that never had a nerve to stand up and speak the power, that are always sitting there looking at the ground and then turning around. What's that?
Does it hurt your feelings?
No, it doesn't hurt my feelings. It just embarrasses me that we still have house Negroes and stupid field hands that don't have sense enough to escape, that are still dancing and bucking and cooning on the plantations that they're scared to walk off of, even though there are no gates and no real fences. It's all in their sick slave's head. I'll say this, it embarrasses me acutely that I have to deal with some slave ancestry. I take it as a matter of pride that every single one of my immediate ancestors didn't have to be freed or emancipated by anybody. They saw to it themselves. And it still embarrasses me that the ex-slave thinks like a slave and keeps asking, when is somebody going to give him something, without understanding that the real deal is, if you're a free man, nobody has to give you a damn thing. You can go get it yourself. So we spend all this time about what somebody's supposed to give us, and a corresponding lack of time on what we're going to go do for self. Now, when all the Black Power thing started 55, 58 years ago, back in the mid 60s, it was get the hell out of my way. I'll do it myself. Now it's, you need to do this for us. Well, see, that's just dependency. And I guess that's a half century of dependency and getting a welfare check. People are talking about, oh, wow, we deserve it. Maybe you do. But the problem is unless you really, really, really need it, you know, and I see people being an extremist, it's an embarrassment to get it, in my opinion.
All right. So Social Security, let me share this.
Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, you're saying, remember?
Yeah. So you sent me this article today dealing with Social Security is heading from bad to worse. So I thought about it and I asked you, I said, is Social Security, do you think Social Security is a Ponzi scheme? Like
what happened is when they set up Social Security back in the early 1930s, it was rushed and there were some loopholes. Franklin Delano Roosevelt discovered one of them, and that is that the government can borrow against Social Security. And he used that opportunity to get funds to finance his New Deal to get people back on their feet economically. Nobody ever fixed that. So for the last 80 years, it's been there. And the government keeps borrowing and borrowing and borrowing from Social Security. It gets modified from time to time, and it gets add-ons like Medicare, Medicaid, and Affordable Care Act. And what goes on is they've got one particularly with Medicare about when you have to pay in and penalties if you don't start early, but wait and keep your own insurance company for a while. The penalties are there because they want you to keep putting money in the fund so they can go take it out for their little special programs. And when we get into Social Security, I dealt with them recently, and it's a horrible experience. It takes forever. There's nobody to answer your calls. It's all by machine. This thing about going online is just absolutely ridiculous. There's like 30 some pages of nonsense. And I'm a retired judge and was a pretty damn good lawyer. And I'm saying, what the devil are they talking about? And then when you finally decide to call and get an appointment, they'll call you back in 25, 26, 30 days. They'll call you. And then when you talk to them, they say, oh, I don't know why we tell people to go online. It's a complete waste of time. Either talk on the phone or go in. And now we find you're going to have to go in. But that article cited some independent groups who went around and looked, and some of the Social Security offices that are fully funded don't exist. There's nothing there. It's a blank space. So who is the money, or what is the money going to that's supposed to be funding these particular non-existent Social Security offices? Something is way wrong. You know, we are in a computer age, but instead of facilitating stuff, it's ridiculous. You used to be able to, a utility matter, Social Security matter, just make a quick appointment, which would be a day from then, or even walk in, and in an hour or two, you get to talk to somebody and it's quickly resolved. Now you're sitting here trying to fill out paperwork, well, not paperwork, online forms, and waiting around, and nobody knows what's going on. And you're trying to talk to somebody and they have to call 3 supervisors to figure out what the situation is because nobody knows. And it's a disgrace. And press 1 if, press 2 if, press 3 if, and you get all the way to 9. If none of these options, or you need to have them repeated, press 0, and then you go back through and you're yelling at the damn phone, I need to talk to somebody. Get me a representative. And finally, after the 8th or 9th time, we'll hold on, please. We'll connect you with a representative, and you wait for the next 2.5 hours. And then 2 hours in, they say, if you'd like, just press 1 and we will call you back at this number. Okay.
So so this is an article you sent me. I just want to read the first paragraph or so. The federal agency that administers Social Security benefits is facing a customer service mess. And you was just going over that. The Social Security Administration is cutting staff, restricting what recipients can do over the phone, and closing some local field offices that help people in person. The number of retirees claiming benefits has risen in recent years as baby boomers age. Few federal agencies, such as far into the American lives as Social Security Administration, which delivers a monthly check to some 70 million people. Many fear that the changes, part of President Trump's push to overhaul the federal government through the Department of Government Efficiency, are eroding confidence in the nearly 90-year-old program. So the Social Security program is 90 years old.
Almost.
Agency, and by the time I get eligible for Social Security, if it still exists, it'll be over 100 years.
Well, yeah. And look, see, this is what's so bad about it. Back in the 1960s, an interesting topic was if something's not done, and this is back in the 60s, Social Security is going to be overloaded when the baby boomers come of age. Now, when they first started saying that, the last of the baby boomers had not been born. That was in 1966. The first baby boomer turned 21 in 1967. I turned 21 in 1968. So for the last 58 years, 59 years, we've been talking about this, but nothing's been done in more than a half century. Think about it. It's 7 decades. So nobody has done anything to correct the problem in 7 whole decades that they knew was going to hit the fan. And it's a Ponzi scheme because the money comes in, it gets taken out, not used for the specified purpose, with the intent of putting it back in later. And it requires that something on the same scheme be brought in later to make the scheme whole. That's a Ponzi scheme. And that's exactly what we have right now. It's a cash cow that the government can milk, and they milk it for all kinds of things that have nothing to do with the intent of Social Security, which is after what happened with the Great Depression. 1929, because the United States was on a gold standard, and when the market crashed and they were calling in margins, what was going on is you have to pay off that margin, which is the difference between what your dollar value is and the amount of gold that can back that dollar up. So you had a crash, and a lot of people were suffering all over the country, all over the world, because the world economy is intertwined. So what winds up happening is the U.S. says we're going to come up with Social Security. In other words, security for social purposes. These people work, and considering the harm and devastation that comes from an economic disaster or other disasters, we need to set up an insurance program, not a giveaway, but an insurance program. That's what that FICA stuff is that comes out of your paycheck every time you get one. And people pay into it, but the money doesn't stay there and earn interest as soon as it gets in, except for what's necessary to maintain a safety margin. Whatever little amount that is deemed to be, and what is getting paid out, the government comes in and borrows it for other purposes with the intent of putting it back in. And the theory for 50 years was, well, considering the number of baby boomers born from 1946 to 1966, that will steadily increase the cash flow into the Social Security pot. That means we can take stuff out, but there'll always be more back in there. Well, guess what? Now the population is not breeding like it used to, even though the total population is getting more and more crowded. That older generation is getting to the point where it's time for them to collect on the insurance they're all paid in. And to show you what that is, Trump's administration has said, we're going to see to it that there are no taxes on Social Security. Why? Because if you paid into Social Security, you've already paid the taxes on the income that they took from your paycheck. Remember the FICA deductions? And they put it in the account. So you paid the taxes. It's your money. They just put it into an insurance plan for you, and they hold it in trust for the American people who work and pay Social Security.
Okay.
So where is our money? What did you do with it? Quote, it's a Ponzi scheme. Ah.
I want to read a couple more paragraphs here. It says agencies officials have acknowledged that because of a planned reduction in services over the phone, there will be longer wait and processing times. An estimated 75 to 85,000 additional visitors a week could show up at a local field offices, according to internal memo sent by Doris Diaz, the acting deputy commissioner for operations. That is likely to tax the agency's 800 number, where people typically make appointments for office visits. Already, Social Security recipients have long complained about customer service. So let me scroll down a little bit because
it's absolutely horrible.
Mhm.
And
Commerce,
how did it get that way? It isn't anything new. This
right,
is
you can't blame Doge.
absolutely horrid.
You can't blame Doge for the delays, even though Doge is coming in, cutting a lot of stuff because he's seeing a lot of the waste. You can't blame Doge for the delays because, like you said, it's been happening. It's been a mess. So I want
In that article, remember the independent agency that they cite that's been going out and checking and found these Social Security offices that are listed don't even exist, but they're getting paid or money is being funded for them. So where does money go if they don't exist?
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said in a recent podcast interview that if Social Security checks were hypothetically delayed, it might catch those guilty of fraud because they would make the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining. Critics say turmoil at the agency is undermining trust in the safety net programs. Quote, they are killing these programs from the inside, said Governor J.B. Spritzer. He's a Democrat out of Illinois. The result of which is we don't know what they are doing to tear down the scaffolding that holds Social Security together, end quote.
It wasn't the Republic. I mean, I was a lifetime Democrat until I just got nauseated by what they were doing. And I said, my reason that I thought was legitimate for supporting them was that they supported the Bill of Rights. The Republican Party at one time kind of stepped on the Bill of Rights because they were for law and order. Now, the Democratic Party is in for mind control and control of freedom of speech, to end it, to get rid of due process of law, to allow the use of The criminal justice system for political suppression is against Second Amendment considerations. The roles have reversed. Now the Republican Party supports the Bill of Rights, and the Democratic Party wants to stomp all over it with a pair of soccer cleats because it's in the way of them exerting governmental control for mind control. So the roles are reversed, but I will put it this way: most of what's wrong with this, and I said that as a caveat, most of what's wrong with the Social Security Administration right now can be attributed to the Democratic Party. Roosevelt, Truman, Kennedy, LBJ, Carter, Clinton, and
Obama.
when you start Obama, but you can throw Bush in there, George Walker Bush in there with his cousin to Obama, so family thing. You can put all that in there. So the burden is spread because Social Security is this big pot of money right there. So when you can't make ends meet and you have a special program you want to deal with, there it is. You can just take it. And because all of these people are paying this money in that you don't have to pay out yet, all of these people that are paying in and they're 29 years old and 38 years old and they still have 20, 30, 40 years to go to pay, all that money can be put back, but you can borrow it for right now. And by the time it's necessary to get it back in, you won't be in office. Nobody will be getting on you.
So let me read this. Doge has gained access to systems containing personal information, but a federal judge has temporarily blocked those efforts. On Friday, Lynn Dudek, acting Social Security Commissioner, threatened to shut down an agency because of the order, but later reversed course. Many are already nervous about shortfalls in the program's finances. Unless Congress acts to shore up the retirement program, it is projected to deplete its reserves in 2033, triggering a 21% reduction in benefits.
Let me say something again. This is funny. I've been in Social Security offices recently. I'm looking at the red, pink, green, yellow, and orange braids down to somebody's butt, the blue dented hair, the sagged and bagged breeches, the scuffed out pants, the transparent jeans being worn by the employees, looking like they're thugs straight off the street or they're some kind of space cadet, white, black, brown, red, yellow. Nobody looks like they work in a federal office. There are no suits, no ties, no jackets, no nothing. They just look straight off the streets. That really inspires me, which say, oh, I want these guys to have all of my intimate information on how much I work, who I owe it to, who I've been getting it from, who I've been paying it out to. I want this bunch to have access to all of this sensitive information. But then I listened to somebody saying it's okay for them to have it, but not these people in Doge who have the security clearances or who have the smarts or who are known. They can't have it. But these people that get hired as temps, and when you talk about this, you have to talk about the IRS temps who work part-time, during tax season, and they're school dropouts, they're getting welfare checks and everything else, and they get prosecuted for reporting and claiming on their unemployment insurance, which happens after every tax season, so they can be trusted, but not these folk at the top, including the guy, remember Musk, he builds these hugely powerful rockets that can rescue folks stranded on the space station because the Boeing capsule doesn't work. And the Space Force of the United States is negotiating with him to do 20 shots to perfect a new round of ICBMs. Remember, those are those rockets that go from one continent to another in half hour and drop 5 million tons equivalent of TNT with 10 multiply independently targetable warheads. That kind of security clearance that somebody has, you know, is supposed to make him a threat to get his little grubby fingers on the same kind of records he could get his grubby fingers on when he was head of PayPal. There's so many of those folk that work in IRS and Social Security use PayPal. Yeah, I'm really impressed by that argument. It stinks to high heavens because it's absolutely ridiculous.
So let me finish. I just want to read a couple more paragraphs, but I am going to put the link to this article in the description for you guys to read on your own leisure. It says there has been a steady decline in the agency staff. The DOGE plans to cut employment by another 12% this year. That will bring the total number of employees to about 50,000 from about 57 today and nearly 68 in 2010. Starting March 31st, people who want to file for retirement, survival, or disability benefits or change their direct deposit information can no longer complete the process by phone, the agency said Tuesday. Instead, they must do so online or at a field office. The agency said it is stopping phone claims as part of the effort to reduce fraud and strengthen identity proofing procedures. The Social Security Agency has estimated that improper payments represent 0.3% of total benefits.
Now you take that 0.3%, that's 0.3%, and multiply it by the quite a few $1 billion that are paid out. That's still a good sum of money. And
So,
then the
one last thing I want to just read one last thing. DOGE plans to close nearly 50 of the agency's approximately 1,200 field offices, according to Social Security Works. Although a spokesperson for the nonprofit says some of the offices on the list don't seem to exist.
Yeah. So it's like we're closing them, but where are they? You go there and visit, there's nothing in the building. So what office are you talking about? Where's the money going? And then did you see the published list? Musk put it on X. They've got several tens of thousands of Social Security recipients, supposedly, who are over 150 years old. No such creatures exist. They've got a handful that are collecting Social Security that if they were real, they'd be 300 years old. And they got several thousand that are older than the United States who are supposed to be collecting Social Security. What is that? See, that's what they're talking about fraud. And then the whole thing is a Ponzi scheme. It needs to be put back to square one, and those loopholes need to be closed so the government can't borrow from it. It's sacrosanct. It is a contract and an agreement between the U.S. government and the people of the United States of America that if you work in this country, your employer, or if you are self-employed yourself, you have to contribute into FICA insurance premiums. So when you or somebody else gets 65 years of age or 62 at the minimum, they are entitled to an insurance payout every year so that they can sustain themselves in dignity.
Well, one last question on Social Security, and then we're going to move to pop culture real quickly. But so let's just say Social Security in the next decade or so disappeared, ceased to exist.
2033, it'll be broke if things aren't.
Right, it'll be broken, but what if they just get rid of Social Security altogether before?
They can't.
Oh, they cannot.
The reason they can't is because for the last going on 90 years, remember that's almost a century, they've got this whole country completely dependent upon it. Everybody pays into the Social Security fund.
So here's my question real quick. So if they're saying by 2033 that it'll be broken, do you think that it was intentional for it to break?
No, it's bad habits. In other words, mommy, can I have $1? Mommy, can I have
Government.
$10? Mommy, can I have 1,000? If it keeps getting handed to you, you
Bad,
never get
bad,
the
bad
idea.
habits by the government. Bad habits
What?
by the government.
No, that's what I'm saying. In other words, for just shy of a century, 90 years, almost 90 years, the U.S. government has been raiding the cookie jar. See, you go into a house and everybody's got to put money in the cookie jar when they pass through the house. The house is the gatehouse. So everybody that goes through the gatehouse drops money going back and forth. But the government's coming in, well, this is for this purpose, but they won't miss it for right now. And somebody else will come in. Eventually, they'll catch up and there'll be fewer people we have to pay out for because people are dying. And what we
So
said,
let me ask this question.
Medicaid, we want to help them to hurry up and die. So this money won't have to be paid out for 15, 16, 20, 29 years. It'll only be paid out for 2 or 3 years. And everything will be all right if we just encourage them to hurry up and die.
All right. So one last question on this. This is my solution. I like solutions. So will it be better? So let's just say by 2033, the system is broken. They have no choice but to get rid of it.
They can't.
Well, okay.
They have to revise it.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Even better, because the point that I'm trying to arrive at, if they revise it, whatever, replace it, wouldn't it be better if let's just say if they were to replace it with an invest, how we have our pensions.
No,
Let
because
me stop. Please stop. You have to let me finish, please. When you work for a company and you have 401k or you have a pension, it could be independent, and you put your money in a financial capital investment firm. If Social Security was transferred to an investment firm the same way a person, an independent person, choose to independently invest their money in an investment firm for retirement purposes, and a lot of times you get a lot of gains on that, wouldn't that make sense and be more profitable for the individual?
No, it wouldn't. There's a thing called economy of scale, and it just provides another opportunity for the enterprising to rip the public off. There are too many of those scams going on right now. Free enterprise is great when the money involved belongs to the people who are investing it and spending it. When it's somebody else's money, you'll get stolen blind. Free enterprise does not work when they're spending government money so well. But when it really works, when somebody is dedicated to it, everybody squawks. Look what they're doing with Elon Musk and Doge. They're squawking like strangling little rats getting caught in a trap because they become dependent on it. And it's not good. Now, you have to have Social Security. In today's world right now, with the fact that the economy is so mercurial, it goes up and down so quickly and so easy to get out of control. It's like saying, how would America be if there were no police? And remember, the far left, the blue folk, they want to strip everybody's right to be armed. So you're disarmed. Do you think without police that you could get by with the criminal element that's so rampant and has been encouraged to just think only of self and human nature being what it is? Do you think all of a sudden you get rid of the police and everybody's going to sprout a pair of wings and flap and with a halo? It doesn't work that way. How do you think it would work if we abolished the Department of Defense and got rid of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and now the Space Force? Do you think that would work? Because human nature is human nature.
Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to episode 11 of Injustice for All with Judge Joe Brown. And we will see you in the next episode.